Alright, so this is where we left off in the first tutorial video. We've got our Hulk with our Danny DeVito head, we changed the color, and we're ready for the second part. So, what we're going to do is we are going to go to File, and by the way, I'm assuming that you've already downloaded the Ironman picture from Canvas. So we go to File, we're going to go to Open in Place, and we need to go find that Ironman picture that we downloaded. So in your Downloads folder, you should have this Ironman image, okay? So we open and place this image. Now notice, he's kind of small, so let's use our Move tool, and make sure that your Transform Controls thing is on so we can have that box around it that we can stretch it out with. So stretch him out, make him a little bigger, don't make him like too wide or too tall, but some kind of normal looking view. Something like this. And you can notice what's happening, like he's got this white box around him. We'll fix that in a sec. So give him a little bit more size, and then we'll worry about this box. So, in order to get this white box off, we are going to use, over here, there's this tool called the Object Selection tool, okay? It looks like a little bean for you at first, okay? If you hover over it, you have these three sub-tools. We are going to pick the Magic Wand, okay? The Magic Wand lets us select a solid color and remove it. So in this case, again, make sure you're on the Ironman layer, but I want to click this white part, and that you can see it kind of selects everything except for the Ironman. So it's selecting all of this white. Now, I can now hit my delete key, but remember, kind of like what happened on that Hulk image, I couldn't cut it until I rasterized the image. So you have to right-click this Ironman image, and we're going to rasterize it. And then now, when I hit delete, I have this Ironman. Now you can see like the white's gone. Now, a big thing that I would suggest is you can still see everything is kind of still selected. If you try to like move stuff, you can see there's like this weird selection that's still on the screen, right? I would suggest that whenever you're done cutting anything or selecting anything, if you hit Control D, that deselects any little selection box on the screen, and it kind of brings you back to your controls, right? I've noticed a lot of people where they have like a tiny little selection somehow, and it doesn't let them move their size their characters because they have a little selection over here. So whenever you can't do something that you would normally think you can, or you see a little selection box, Control D, that'll deselect it. All right. With that said, we've got our new Iron Man picture. He's cut out. We don't have that background. So let's get a little bit zoomed in. So I'm going to hit Z for zoom. I'm going to like click twice on his head and zoom in a little bit. I use my H tool, by the way, my hand to kind of like pan over. It's almost like SketchUp where you can pan over to his certain spot. And by the way, if you kind of zoom in too much on our Z for zoom tool, you've got this fit the area button up here. That just kind of resets our view back to the beginning. So I'm going to click here and get a good view on his face. I'm going to use my lasso tool. So I want to carefully use my lasso tool and cut out this gold part on his face as best I can. And I'm gonna avoid that big red forehead thing and just kind of leave some on the edges because we want to keep the red, but just get rid of that gold. So once you get to the end, you'll see I've got his head. I'm gonna hit delete to get rid of it. Again, I still have this selection thing left over, so I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. Now, I want to replace the inside of his face with my own face. That's what I'm going to do. You can pick another image from Google if you want, but I thought it'd be fun to put my own face in there. So I went down to, you can see if I can move my screen here. I went down to my camera, so I'm going to do camera. And if I open that up, you can see, oh, I can't use the camera because I'm using the camera to record the video. I guess that makes sense. So what I did then, I already have a picture example. So I'll go to File, Open in Place. I guess I've already taken a couple screenshots. And you can find a random character from Google if you want. But if you take a picture with your camera, it's going to be in your go to this PC. You have a folder called Pictures. So it's in your camera roll. So go find your picture, and you need to find your image, and then when you bring it in, it's going to be really big. So obviously I need to resize it, and I'm going to stretch it down so it's going to fit a little bit better. I'm going to zoom in and probably keep on making it a little bit smaller. And then once we get it to kind of about the right size, we're going to use our lasso tool again. And I'm going to just like highlight over my head, cut myself out. Again, once I try to cut by hitting Control X, remember I have to rasterize the layer. All you have to do, right click, rasterize. That lets me now cut it by hitting Control X, pasting it back in by Control V. If it does this, like sometimes it tries to like paste twice for some reason. It just did it for me. Don't worry about it. You just try to go back, and you can always hit Control Z to undo and try to hit your cut paste again. Anyway, I now have my face as its own layer. I've got my background. I can select the background layer and hit my delete key. That gets rid of it. So I'm going to click back on my face layer, and while I'm at it, let's just do this. If you notice, my face layer is just called layer 2. If I double click it, I would rather call it what it is, so that way I don't remember, or I don't forget, I should say, what it's going to be. Okay, because that is going to come into play later. So I'm going to move my face inside the Ironman, and notice, like, it's on top of Ironman right now, and I don't really want that to happen. So I need to move the face layer down underneath Ironman. So you can move it all over the place, but I just need them below that one layer. And you can see now that my face needs to be resized a tiny bit, but now it's starting to like be behind the Ironman layer. I might even use my eraser tool, so I hit E, and I might just kind of like erase the top of this hairline up here. So now I fit a little bit better. So now we have Ironman with my face, and we have Hulk with Danny DeVito's face. Okay. What we're going to do is we are going to combine these two layers, because otherwise, if I don't, and I try to move the Ironman, you can see it's just moving him and not the face. I'm going to undo that. Same thing over here. If I try to move the Hulk around, it's just that. He's still there with his normal face, but his new face is not included. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click my Ironman layer, and I'm going to hold Shift. When I hold Shift, that lets me select multiple things at once. So with my Ironman layer selected, I can hold Shift and click the My Face layer, and you can see now they're both selected. So if I right-click, I can say Merge Layers. That puts them together into one layer. So now my face and the Ironman are the same thing. Same thing over here. Layer 1 is the Hulk. Or, I'm sorry, layer 1 is the Danny DeVito head, and Hulk is separate. I'm going to hold Shift, click on both, so they're both selected. Right-click, merge the layers. Now they're all on one layer. I would probably, again, call it what it is. I'm going to call that layer Hulk. Okay. One last little annoying thing that I'm seeing. I see like a little part of the picture that's down there. Oops. That I don't really want to be there. So I'm going to hit my E tool for erase, get rid of that, and just kind of clean it up a little bit. All right. One of the last things we're going to do is just add a background. So what you need to do is go to Google and find a background that you want. So I'm just going to use, we'll say like New York City street, kind of like where the Avengers were fighting, right? So I'll go to Images. A little tip I would give you is there are some pictures, like on this one, for example, you can highlight over it. It says it's 618 by 410 pixels. That's actually really small. As you guys probably noticed in Photopea, like if you brought a really small image in and try to stretch it, it starts to get kind of like bad looking. So we only want to search for large images. So the way that we can do that is if we hit Tools, we can only set a certain size image. So we can say only large images should show up. Okay. So with that selected, just go through and find a cool picture. I think this one looks kind of cool. So I'll click and open it. That looks good to me. I'm going to right click it and say Save Image As. So you just save it wherever. Save it to your desktop or your downloads or wherever you like to save things. So then back in Photopea, we can bring this image in. So File, Open and Place, and go find that image. So mine's on my desktop. There it is. So obviously, when it's brought in, it's really big and it's over the top of everything because it's on the top layer. So again, stretch it out a little bit. make sure it fits the entire background of the screen, and then make sure that you move that layer all the way underneath the Hulk layer so that it becomes the background, okay? And if you need to like rearrange your other layers to fit a little bit better, that's fine. And you can kind of arrange them how you like, okay? And you can do a couple things too, like with New York, you can again change some of the adjustments if you wanted to like mess with some of the like saturation of the picture, because it's really like really bright and kind of overly colorful. If you really wanted, you could probably like desaturate it a little bit so your characters stand out a little bit more. See how like the colors are kind of going down a little bit. Again, totally optional, but like sometimes if it's really bright, it kind of is like distracting. So again, if you want, you could even like, well, that looks bad, but you get the point. You can play with it. You can even darken it up a tiny bit or brighten your other characters. So it's up to you. Play with it a little bit. That looks good to me. To finalize your project, I want you to add another character on here. So totally your own choice. If you want to continue this whole Avengers theme, you can, and maybe replace his head with some other celebrity or somebody. Or you can just pick another character, I don't care. But I want you to practice your own using some of the stuff that we talked about for Hulk and Iron Man, cutting out heads, changing colors, doing some little basic editing techniques. So make your own different character. If you want to do 2 or 3 others, that's fine. But you will be turning this in, so make it look nice. Try to play around with some of the tools that you might not have tried, and just have fun. Be creative with it. All right, good luck.